Hello everybody and welcome back to another reading video here on my channel. In today's video we have my July wrap up, all the books that I read, all the books that I tackled, maybe if I also completed my TBR for the month. So without further ado, let's go ahead and hop into it. First I want to start by saying this was my entire TBR for the month of July. Every single one of these books, I at least started every single one of these books besides one. I actually finished one. I'm currently 100 pages into it, so it counts. I'm gonna say it counts, but it's not gonna fully be in this wrap up. You know how it goes. Let's go over the first book I accomplished in the month of July. Starting on the 30th of June and ending on the 8th of July, we actually have Catching Fire. This is the second book in the Hunger Games trilogy, the original trilogy, and I hopped into this book. I absolutely loved it. I feel like with the Hunger Games, you can't really go wrong. It is just so nostalgic. It's so fast-paced. Even being an adult reading it, it is so good for some reason, and I have never really read the books before, so hopping into the series, I wasn't sure how it was going to be, and I loved the first movie, but I never really followed too much of the second movie, let alone the third movie especially, or the last two movies. So I went into this a little bit blind. I think some things I definitely recalled and I knew about, so I remembered them from the movies and I could kind of guess what was going to happen. But for the most part, I felt like half of this book I went into completely blind. I absolutely loved it. I rated this 5 stars. I am so excited to finish the trilogy and get into the prequels. I think I've said that so many times before, but honestly, I'm just so excited to continue reading the series. I have been enjoying it so much. I love the way that the movies are portrayed. I love how they're adapted to be very similar to the book. There are a little bit of things that aren't technically like the books, but I feel like with movie adaptations it varies a lot. The Hunger Games does a really good job with actually being very similar to the book, which I really appreciate that, and I've heard so many great things about the prequels and about the final book, so I feel like I'm in a ride. And the final book, Mockingjay, is on my TBR for the month of August, and you best know that I will be reading it and finishing it. Catching Fire, I'm not going to talk too much about like specifics because it is the second in a book and there's so much that happens, so many plots and twists, but basically we have Katniss, who in the first game she wins the games. I feel like we all kind of know that, so it's not so much a spoiler, but she goes into this arena again after basically being told she's never going to have to participate in the games again. If she has kids, yes, but otherwise she herself is never going to have to participate. She's a victor. Then for the 75th Hunger Games, she actually gets her name drawn because they do this little like change of pace every 25 years. They always change it up a little bit, and in this year's for the 75th, they choose victors that have won in the past to re-enter and be in the games, and she is the only female from District 12, and it is so fascinating how Susan Collins came up with the arena this time and how she wrote about it, and some of the characters. I love following a lot of the characters. I love their little personalities because each one was completely different, and I just had a really good time. And of course the ending, the big plot twist that I recalled from the movies, but I feel like if I would have not have watched the movies ever and I was going into this fully blind, I would have never seen it coming. Real quick, my husband's calling, so I'm just gonna say 5 stars, Catching Fire, and I'll get back to you with the second book. After reading Catching Fire, I really wanted a fast-paced book that I wouldn't necessarily feel like I'm getting in a slump because I loved Catching Fire so much, so I wanted something that would maybe hook my attention. And of course, I went with a thriller and a Freida McFadden thriller. I feel like with her books, they're so simple, but at the same time, they hook you for some reason, and they're very fast-paced. So starting on the 8th of July and reading until the 13th of July, I actually picked up Ward D, and I love this book. I love the setting of this book. It was in a hospital on the mental floor. I loved how it was at night. I loved how also it was over the course of like 24 hours, kinda like a couple hours instead of multiple days, multiple weeks. And there were some things that I definitely called, like with most of her books, they are pretty predictable, especially when you read thrillers a lot. But I felt like even though I could predict things, when they came or when it was revealed, I was still very happy, very intrigued going into the book. And definitely the end with the friend, I'll say. The friend, I knew what was going to happen. I knew who she was with, etc. I still loved it. I still thought it was so interesting, and I just could not put the book down the entire time. I liked the things that went on in this book. There's something about her books that for whatever reason I just pick up and I never want to put down, and I always enjoy them so much. And with this one, I did rate it actually just 4 stars. I think looking back it could be almost a 4.5 star just for the way I was feeling while reading it, but I felt like this was a perfect book to read right after a 5-star read. Then starting on the 14th of July and reading all the way till the 24th of July, we actually got into a standalone YA fantasy. This is Hearltess by Marissa Meyer. I've had this on my shelf for maybe about 6 months or so now, maybe a little bit longer, and for some reason I kind of skimmed over it. I did put it on my TBR and I got really excited about it, and I have to say the first maybe 50 or so pages, I wasn't sure if I was going to like this book at all. I was hearing how people were commenting on my photo on Fable that they loved this book. They were so excited to see my review about it, things like that. And when I actually started reading it, I was a little disappointed because I just felt like it wasn't living up to what I've already really heard and how this book was just so good. And also, I'm not a very big Alice in Wonderland fan, so maybe if I was, I would have loved it a little bit more. And I'm not saying I didn't like it, because that is definitely not the case. I absolutely love this book. It was just hard for me to get into. Farther along in the book, I felt like I was getting really into it. I loved the things that were going on. I like the little plots and twists, and with me not actually knowing too much about Alice in Wonderland, I love the little things that I do know, like the little drink me and you'll shrink type stuff. I like the little floating cat. I can't remember his actual name, but the cat and some other things I just thought were kind of interesting. The more common things for Alice in Wonderland, but it wasn't overdone in my opinion, and it wasn't something where, since I didn't know or don't know the full lore or even the full story of Alice in Wonderland, I could still follow along. I didn't need to know all of that backstory. Like sometimes when you read these reimaginings of these stories, you kind of need to read the original first. I didn't have to, and I really enjoyed that, and I loved the characters. I loved the little relationship that blossomed. I loved so much in this book. I don't know, I just found it really great, and I understood the whole ending. I loved the actual ending of this book because it's something that I feel like most people didn't see coming. I could kind of see, but at the same time I was a little concerned because I was like, no, it's not going to stay like this. Like most authors, if something happens with one of the characters, they fix it, let's just say, and it never got fixed. And I thought it was good to the plot because of what happens at the very end, like the very last sentence, but at the same time it was just very interesting. And I love the little monster, the play on that with the pumpkins. I like how she was a baker and how she had her own troubles and like hurdles that she was trying to overcome, but within that she was also trying to seek her dream, let's just say, and try and open a bakery and do all these things that technically she wasn't allowed to do. And I just thought this whole book was very interesting. I do see the hype on it, and I am glad I read it. I also am very glad that it was a standalone, because I don't know if I would be very interested to go into a book 2 of this, for this being its own book and fast-paced towards, I'd say about 25% to 100% was very fast-paced for me. I don't know. I really enjoyed it. I did rate this one also 4 stars. And then we have the final book that I actually completed in the month of July, starting on the 24th and going all the way till the 29th. We actually have Where the Crawdads Sing. I have no clue how long this has been sitting on my shelf. I think I thrifted this either at the end of our Wisconsin days in 2021 or the beginning of our Vegas days when we were stationed out in Las Vegas. And I know I put it on TBRs when we were in Las Vegas, because I remember sitting in our loft holding it up and saying, I'm going to read this month. And you know what? Flash forward at least 2 years later, because we've been home for over a year. So flash forward to 2 years later and I finally pick it up and I enjoyed it. I feel like this book in particular was actually harder than even Heartless for me to get into. I used an audiobook for a lot of this because I was out just so busy cleaning the house and trying to clean out the pool and doing other things for a couple hours, the audiobook, and I feel like that helped me get more into this book, because by halfway I still felt like that where I could put it down. I could technically DNF it, walk away. I don't think it was really my time to read this book. I felt like I was just pressured, like I wanted to just read it just to read it, get it finally off my shelf, instead of being like real excited about reading it. And with that being said, it took me a lot longer to get into this book. I was very intrigued with the character. I did like this book in all. Like when I look over at everything that I read, I did actually really enjoy this book. I loved the little setting. I loved how it was in North Carolina, in a little bit of the swamp or the marsh, and then you had like the regular city life in the 50s and stuff. So I liked the dynamic and how the main character, again, she had like her own personal hurdles that she had to overcome, but at the same time there were a couple people who were there on the sidelines trying to help her, and I liked the story of that. I liked the ending, the little plot twist at the end. I thought that was so good, because I haven't read a little plot twist quite like that, where I didn't get enough information to be sure if what the trial was in this book, if it was real, if it wasn't, like if she did it or if she didn't do it. So the whole time I was kind of confused, and then the plot twist at the end, I was like, you got me. You actually got me this time, because I didn't see that coming. I loved like the little story of a little bit of like the romance, not so much with one character, but the one that ultimately becomes the actual character she ends up staying with. I enjoyed that, and I love how she just kind of overcame some obstacles and just made a life for herself, let's just say. I am very excited to actually watch this movie one of these days. I think it's on Disney Plus. If not, it might be on Netflix, so I want to try and find it and then watch it and see if I understand maybe some things that I might have missed in the book, or some things I was unsure, I had questions on, see if the movie helps helps me understand that more, or if it's about the same and it's one of those where you don't really get answers. I think it was more just me because I was listening, so I probably tuned out the audiobook from time to time and missed some things, but I did enjoy this. But since I had trouble with the book and I had to use an audiobook, and I know I'm going to forget this because I don't remember audiobooks that much, I'm gonna say this is a 3.5 stars. It might stay on my shelf, it might not. I have not made up my mind if I want to truly keep it or not, because it has sat so long on there, so it has a spot on my shelf. But at the same time, I don't know if I loved it as much. That's one reason also I want to watch the movie, to see if I'll change my opinion a little bit more on the book, and I'll love the movie so much that I'll want to keep the book, especially since I already read the book. And finally, we have our final book that technically I have started, and it was on my TBR, so I'm going to give myself a check, as in I read my TBR, but I have not completed all of it in the month of July. On the 30th of July, I actually picked up If He Had Been With Me. So yesterday I started this, and I am only 106 pages into this. I'm not very far, but I'm far enough in to get a little bit basis of how I feel about this book so far. I know some things are going to happen because I remember everybody saying this was such a sad book, and I feel like people were saying, oh, it told us in the beginning this was going to happen and we didn't listen, and then we got to the end and this happened, and it's like tears are shed right off the bat with the character and her ex-friend at the time, I guess you would say. I don't know, it's like flippy floppy if they're friends or not. I can sense something like a connection happening and not just like a friendship. So I'm a little bit worried because she's dating somebody right now, and I feel like she does not deserve him. He just seems so sweet right now, like he's doing all these extra things for her, and I feel like, besides the fact that I also think secretly he has a secret that he's hiding from her, I feel like more than that, he might be too good for her, which is kind of sad to say. I need to read more because I'm kind of just still gathering information about the characters. I like how fast paced this is. I also love how short the chapters are. I feel like this is helping me fly through this book. The font is super big. I don't really have a problem with this book so far. I just don't think I'm far enough in to truly judge too much of it. It's definitely not what I thought it was going to be. Picking it up, I thought it was completely different, so I'm trying not to just jump to conclusions and say, oh, this is going to happen at the end, or this is going to happen with this character, or this couple is going to have this happen, because I've done that I think 4 different times, and then my conclusions or assumptions are kind of wrong, which it might just be because of the genre it is. I'm used to making assumptions in thriller books and they turn out good, but this book I'm actually wrong on like everything I've assumed so far, which, I mean, you know what they say about assuming, so yeah, I'm about 100 pages into it and I am enjoying it for right now. I am excited to actually finish this probably in the month of August. I don't think I'm going to read 300 pages today. I have actual stuff to do, but otherwise I am glad I finally tackled this, because I think this is sat on my shelf for at least maybe a year, if not more, and it'll be exciting to finish it, and it's on my 25 books I want to read in 2025 list, so that will be another accomplishment if I actually complete this. Here's all the books that I accomplished in July, minus this book, I guess technically, these 4. So let's go into some monthly statistics. First off, because I haven't finished If He Had Been With Me, I am still at 13 out of 25 books read for my 25 books I want to read in 2025, which is equivalent to 52% accomplished. If, of course, I finish If He Had Been With Me, that will put me at 14 books. On my physical TBR, last month, out of 113, I was at 82 books unread. I know it's terrible. I have 6 books crossed off for a DNF that I'm just unhauling. I'm just completely getting rid of a whole series, and then everything else, I have 29 books that I've read this year, so that is all getting crossed off with the 29 books and those 6 books. I have only 78 books left on my physical TBR. We are 18 books shy of where I want to be at the end of this year, and we are only at the end of July. So hopefully I can read a couple more, like 20 plus more books, and then because for my birthday I'm probably going to go buy books, it'll kind of equal out and I will be at 60 or below. That would be honestly great. That's my goal. Or if not, 65 books and below on my physical TBR. I've been trying really hard to actually tackle my physical TBR, even though I keep buying books. Make it make sense. I don't know. Like I said, I finished 29 books this year. Mystery is still my top genre with 5 books. Here recently in the last month, it went from romance being in second place to romance, sci-fi, and YA fantasy all tied in second place with 4 books each. For the month of July, I read 4 books with a total number of 1,507 pages, and also I did have 1 5-star read. Of course, that was Catching Fire. However, I'm going to put down for my favorite book of the month. As much as I love Catching Fire, and technically I usually try and rate my favorite book of the month as my highest rated book, but when I look at all my list, I think for the way I was feeling in the moment while reading it, Ward D is probably my favorite book of the month, and I feel like it's because Catching Fire was the second book in the series, so I already know how it kind of is. I was going into a second book. This I was freshly restarting, and it was just so different different, fast-paced, all those things that yes, Catching Fire was. For some reason, when looking at the stack of books I've read, I just feel like this was my favorite book. So even though this was a little bit lower than Catching Fire, I'm going to say this was my favorite book. And that is everything I have for my July wrap-up. I hope you guys all enjoyed this video. Stay tuned for any reading vlogs I have upcoming. If you haven't watched my TBR for the month of August, go ahead and click back on that. That was posted last Sunday. I hope to see you in any other videos here on my channel, and as always, God bless.